The mind-body problem is a debate concerning the relationship between thought and consciousness in the human mind, and the brain as part of the physical body. As such, it can be restated as the mind-brain problem. Our discussion will look at two things: the relationship between mind's conscious experience and brain function, and whether or not you can tell that other people have minds. There are a range of ideas about the mind-body problem, from dualism to eliminativism, and everything in between. We will go from left to right and explain why all of these approaches are pretty F-tier. Starting with dualism. Dualism is the idea that you yourself are a ghost and that your thoughts are held in some ghostly winds that communicate with the physical part of yourself to produce thoughts and actions. This would mean you are a ghost in some other plane of existence and control your body like a puppet master. However, Occam's razor cuts this down quickly, as there is no evidence of ghosts nor external information being sent to your brain and back out. Since life isn't an animated movie, we can then try a physicalist stance. Physicalism is just the idea that minds and mental states are formed from the functioning of the physical brain. All ideas we discuss from here on out will be physicalist in nature. So let's try behaviorism. Behaviorism is the idea that you can tell what a person's mental states are from their body language and their outward actions. This is an argument by analogy that basically says I have mental states that cause me to act a certain way. You act in similar ways to me, so you must have mental states too. Which seems fair enough. This is intuitively how most of us go about our lives, but as a philosophical argument, it falls apart under pretty light scrutiny. The ideas of the super-actor and the super-Spartan ruin behaviorism. The super-actor is someone who can act like they are in extreme pain, but not actually be feeling any pain at all. The super-Spartan is someone who would realistically be in extreme pain, like, say, if they stepped on a Lego, and shows no outward signs of being in pain due to their absolutely mental fortitude. In these instances, a behaviorist would have to admit that the actor is in pain and that the Spartan is not. But if you've seen any Netflix documentaries, you know that mental states and behavior don't always coincide. Besides, behaviorism doesn't even address what is capable of having mental states. I mean, on a practical level, we shouldn't have to worry about something other than humans. Right? Functionalism does start to address the ideas of robots having mental states. Functionalism says that it doesn't matter what hardware is being used, whether it's neurons in a brain or a computer's processor, as long as it's running the same flowchart. This is like saying that using machines instead of barbells gets the same job done. I would ask you to review the flowchart once more. Usually this is the part where people bring up the Chinese room, but we'll draw a different comparison. Let's use the classic Chinese board game, Go. There is a match set up between our boy Elon and a computer, named AlphaGo. Elon learned the rules and practiced with friends to prepare for this match. AlphaGo was programmed to follow the rules and fed videos of professional players so it could recognize strategies using machine learning. AlphaGo beats Elon. Does this mean AlphaGo was big brain enough to understand what it was doing? The answer is no. Just in the same way that you wouldn't have a better understanding of Chinese just because you could recognize patterns of which characters go with other characters. It's just matching inputs with outputs over time, which does not require thinking. Identity theory agrees that robots can't think. More specifically, identity theory wants to explain all mental states with an equivalent physical state. For example, experiencing pain would be the equivalent of C fibers firing. Experiencing pleasure would always equate to P fibers firing, and so on. This seems reasonable, but it's rather chauvinistic. It ultimately means that only creatures with our specific type of wiring can have mental states. But if another intelligent life came to Earth, and clearly had the technology to reach out to us, we would be hard-pressed to say they didn't have thoughts or mental states, even if they didn't have a nervous system like ours. So what if we just yeet the idea of mental states entirely? That's what eliminativism wants to do. Other than being a mouthful, it states that we should get rid of all talk of mental states entirely. Effectively, Followers of this idea say talk of minds is bad science and should be all replaced with terms derived from neuroscience and evidence-based materials. We haven't made any strides in explaining creativity, memory, and mental illness in relation to minds. So instead of saying something normal like I'm excited, you would say an appropriate mouthful such as I have lots of epinephrine pumping through my blood and hitting my cells receptors right now. And while you technically wouldn't be wrong for saying that, you end up in social situations like this.
Hey dude, you missed a spot.
I got it. Just a little sodium chloride.
Actually, dude, it's salt.
That's what I said. Sodium chloride.
Dude, that would be salt.
That's what I said. Sodium chloride. That's what I said. Sodium chloride.
And you'll be the reason people wish the purge was real. Not only that, the mere fact that you can introspect about things proves eliminativism to be false. If your neurons are firing correctly, you can introspect and realize that you do indeed have thoughts. Moreover, you can have thoughts about your thoughts, which already puts you 2 layers above what eliminativist would claim as true. You literally can't have opinions about a stance that says there are no opinions. Suits me, though. I can't believe anything. I'm just a text-to-speech bot. So what gives? You can tell that you have mental states. It's our best bet to believe that mental states come from our physical being, but all these stances just don't work. Enter teleofunctionalism. As a school of thought, it slots right between functionalism and identity theory. It's defined by the idea that mental states derive from the physical function that typically plays that role in a given species. First, we'll see how teleofunctionalism bests its shorthand counterpart. Recall that functionalism is about running the same flow chart. Well, let's imagine a masochist, meaning that they run the pain flow chart, but instead of pain, they experience pleasure. Well, functionalism would say that's impossible. Teleofunctionalists, however, are able to accept that some people are weird, but that's what makes life interesting. And if you've ever been on Twitter for too long, you'll find that there are clearly some people who enjoy pain. Absolutely disgraceful. But now we dive into some potentially irrelevant debate, just to prove a pointless point. We will now look where teleofunctionalism rubs against identity theory. Recall that identity theory says pain equals C fibers firing. No ifs, ands or buts. Teleofunctionalism says that pain is whatever a given species uses. So if you have a human with a normal nervous system and an alien with a system of tubes, identity theory would say only the human feels pain. But teleofunctionalism would say the alien feels pain too. But if you had a group of aliens who all use tubes, and then some strange alien who had a human nervous system, identity theory would say that strange creature feels pain, but teleofunctionalism would say it doesn't. This gets brought up as a counter-argument for teleofunctionalism, but it's a weak argument that has no practical consideration, especially since if and when we have contact with aliens, there's practically no chance that they will have anatomy just like ours. And even if they get close enough for contact, they'll just take one look at us and think, nah, never mind. So your best bet as you go through life is to be a teleofunctionalist. Now go out there and be convinced that other people have minds and that we're probably not in a simulation. But given how this year has went, it might actually explain some things if we were.